Everyone thought Mason Carter was a nobody until one Google search shattered their arrogance in seconds. What happened next turned a disrespectful daughter-in-law into someone begging for a second chance.
"You're just a nobody." That was the first sentence my future daughter-in-law Emily ever said to me. She didn't say it directly to my face. She whispered it under her breath while scrolling through her phone, assuming I couldn't hear her. But I did. And so did my son, Mark. He froze for a second, uncomfortable, then forced to smile to keep the dinner from getting awkward. Emily had been difficult from the beginning. She cared about status, cars, houses, salaries, designer clothes. And me? I lived simply. A small cabin outside Denver, an old pickup truck, and a quiet life. She assumed that meant I had nothing, that I was nothing. I never argued. I never explained. Not because I was hiding anything, but because I didn't feel the need to prove my worth to someone who judged people so quickly. That changed the night her parents came for dinner. Emily's mom, Linda, was the opposite of her, polite, observant, and surprisingly curious. "So, what did you say your last name was?" she asked me while helping set the table. "Henderson," I replied. "Wait, Henderson? As in Henderson Technologies?" Emily laughed out loud. "Mom, no! He just has the same last name. He lives in a cabin. Dad, tell her. Mark's dad is just a quiet, retired guy. He's, well, nobody." Linda didn't respond. She just nodded slowly, walked to the living room, and took out her phone. A few seconds passed, then a minute, then 2. And suddenly she gasped. She turned toward Emily with eyes wide and voice shaking. "Emily," she said, "come here, now." Emily huffed, rolled her eyes, and walked over lazily until she looked at the phone. Her entire face went pale. Mark looked confused. "Mom, what's going on?" Linda slowly lifted her eyes toward me. "Mr. Henderson, are you that William Henderson?" Emily grabbed the phone again, and this time actually read, not skimmed, read every line, every article, every headline. Henderson, the man who sold his company for $480 million. Henderson's anonymous donations build 12 schools across Colorado. The missing billionaire philanthropist who lives off the grid. "Is this you?" Emily finally asked, her voice small, unsteady. I nodded. "It used to be. My cabin? It wasn't because I was poor. It was because I wanted peace. My pickup truck? I liked it more than the Porsche I once owned. My quiet life? After 2 decades in tech, I'd earned the right to disappear." But Emily never expected that the man she mocked was the founder of a company she used every single day. She sank into the couch, speechless. For the first time since I had met her, she didn't have anything rude or loud to say. Linda looked at her daughter and said, "You should apologize immediately." But I stopped her. "No," I said gently, "let her understand first." Emily stared at me with a mix of embarrassment, regret, and disbelief. And suddenly everything in that house changed. Emily didn't speak for a long moment. She just sat there, her fingers curled tightly together, staring at the glowing screen as if the articles might suddenly disappear. Mark finally broke the silence. "Dad, why didn't you ever tell me you were still on the internet like this? I thought everything about the company was confidential after you sold it." I smiled softly. "Most of it is, but my name was already out there long before the private agreements. You know that." Emily swallowed hard. Her voice was thin. Why didn't you tell us?" I looked at her gently. "Because people should respect others for who they are, not for what they own or what they've accomplished." Linda nodded deeply. "Wise words," she said. Emily's father, a quiet man named Ron, finally spoke up too. I always tell Emily not to judge the book by its cover, but looks like she needed a hard lesson. Emily's cheeks flushed red. She took a shaky breath and said, "Mr. Henderson, I'm sorry for what I said." I nodded but didn't respond immediately. I wanted her apology to come from understanding, not fear. Linda sat beside her and whispered something only Emily could hear. Emily's eyes suddenly filled with tears. She stood up and walked toward me hesitantly. "I didn't just judge you," she said. "I dismissed you, mocked you. I thought because you lived simply, that meant you lacked success. I was wrong. Not just wrong, unfair." The room was silent. Even Mark didn't interrupt. Emily wiped her eyes and continued, "I've always cared too much about appearances, status. I didn't realize how shallow it made me." I motioned for her to sit. "Emily," I said calmly, "wealth doesn't define a good person, and not having wealth doesn't define a bad one. You were never wrong for wanting a comfortable life, but you were wrong for assuming someone else couldn't give or offer value because they didn't show it the way you expected." Emily nodded slowly. "You're right, and I'm really sorry." Her voice cracked slightly. Ron wrapped an arm around her shoulder, relieved she had finally said the words. Linda let out a breath, clearly grateful. Ron cleared his throat awkwardly. "Well, this has been enlightening." Everyone laughed softly, tension easing. But the real shift didn't happen until later that night. After dinner, while everyone was chatting in the living room, Linda came and sat beside me quietly. "You're a patient man, Mr. Henderson," she said. "Most people with your background would have flaunted it or corrected Emily the moment she said those things." I shook my head. "Life is too short to spend proving yourself to people. Besides, if someone only respects me after learning my bank balance, then they never respected me in the first place." Linda smiled warmly. "You're a rare man." Emily, overhearing, slowly approached. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." She sat on the edge of the chair, nervous. "What made you walk away from everything? The company, the wealth, the spotlight?" I leaned back and exhaled, remembering. "Because none of it mattered anymore. I achieved what I wanted professionally, but success has a price. I lost my wife to illness during those years. I missed too many moments with Mark. And one day, I realized I didn't want the world to know my name. I wanted my son to know his father." Mark's eyes softened. Emily covered her mouth, shocked. I had no idea." "You weren't supposed to. Pain isn't something we hang on the wall like a diploma." Emily nodded gently. For the first time, she looked at me not as Mark's father, not as a mysterious billionaire, but as a human being, as someone who had lived through storms she never imagined. Moments later, she asked another question, this time with real curiosity. "What happened after you left the company?" "I built schools," I said simply. "Small ones, rural communities. Kids who would never have had opportunities unless someone helped." Emily's face lit with surprise. "That's amazing." "It's what gave my life meaning again," I replied. She looked down ashamed. "I've spent years chasing meaningless things." "Then chase better things from now on," I told her. "It's never too late." Linda smiled proudly at her daughter. Ron nodded in approval. Mark squeezed Emily's hand. But before we could say more, Emily suddenly asked, "Mr. Henderson, do you think I'm good enough for Mark?" The room fell quiet. She wasn't asking out of insecurity. She was asking out of growth, out of genuine reflection. I looked into her eyes. "Emily, the question isn't whether I think you're good enough. The question is whether you're becoming the woman you want to be.
someone kind, respectful, and humble. Emily nodded with determination. I want to be better, truly. Then you're already on the right path, I told her. Her shoulders relaxed as if a heavy weight had been lifted. For the first time all evening, her smile was sincere. Not polished, not elegant, but real. The house finally felt warm. But I had no idea that the biggest twist was yet to come.
The next morning, I woke earlier than everyone else. Old habits, decades of waking before sunrise to work, think, or simply enjoy the quiet. I stepped outside onto the porch with a cup of coffee, the cool air brushing against my face. I didn't expect anyone else to join me, but surprisingly, Emily did. She stood at the doorway, hesitant. "May I?" she asked softly. I nodded. She sat beside me, hands tucked into her sleeves. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then, without looking at me, she said, "I thought a lot about what you said last night." I sipped my coffee. "Good." "I realized something," she continued. "I've been living my life trying to impress the world, trying to be someone people admire for the wrong reasons. Mark loves me for who I am, but I'm not sure I even knew who that was until yesterday." I turned toward her. "Self-discovery is painful, Emily, but necessary." She smiled sadly. "I guess I needed the truth thrown in my face." She paused, then said, "Can I ask you another question?" "Go ahead." "Do you think I can fix the way Mark sees me? I mean, he didn't say anything last night, but I know he's disappointed in me." I shook my head gently. "Mark isn't disappointed in your past actions. He's more concerned about your future choices. He wants someone who can grow with him." Her eyes softened. "I want that too." "Then show him. Not through grand gestures or apologies, but through consistency." Emily nodded, understanding. A few minutes passed before she spoke again. "Mr. Henderson, I know you lived a very different life before, but do you ever miss it? The wealth, the power, the recognition?" I chuckled lightly. "Sometimes I miss the challenge, the problem-solving, the excitement of building something from nothing. But the status, the noise, the attention? No, not for a second." Emily looked out at the trees, thoughtful. "I think I've been chasing a life you ran away from." "Then maybe you're meant to build something different," I said softly. "Something authentic." She took a slow breath. "I'd like that." Inside the house, the sound of footsteps echoed. Mark opened the door, smiling at both of us. "You two are up early." Emily stood and walked to him, slipping her hand into his. Something had changed in her. An ease, a clarity, a warmth. Mark noticed immediately. After breakfast, Linda approached me quietly while the others cleaned up. "I owe you a thank you," she said. "For what?" "For giving Emily something I couldn't, perspective. I've tried to teach her kindness and humility, but sometimes lessons don't land until life delivers them through the right person." I shook my head gently. "Emily is smart. She just needed a moment to listen." Linda smiled. "And you gave her that moment." But the real surprise came a bit later, when Ron walked in holding his laptop. "Mr. Henderson, there's something you might want to see." He turned the screen toward me. It was an article, published just minutes earlier. The headline read, "Reclusive tech pioneer William Henderson spotted in Denver after years off the grid." A photo accompanied it. A photo taken through the window of the restaurant where we had all eaten the night before. Emily gasped. Mark stepped closer to see. Linda covered her mouth. I stared at the screen in silence. "What does this mean?" Emily asked nervously. Ron sighed. "It means the media might start looking for him again." Emily's eyes widened as the weight of the situation hit her. "Because they think you're returning to the public world?" "Exactly," Ron replied. "They'll think you're preparing for a new venture, or planning a major philanthropic project, or that I'm stepping back into the spotlight." Mark looked worried. "Dad, is this going to be a problem?" I took a deep breath. "It's not ideal. I chose a private life for a reason." Emily suddenly stepped forward. "Is this happening because of us? Because of the dinner? Because we went out? Did we do something wrong?" I shook my head gently. "No, you did nothing wrong. But sometimes attention finds you, even when you're not looking for it." Linda frowned. "Do you want us to help handle it?" "No," I said gently. "This is something I'll need to manage myself." But Emily wasn't convinced. Her expression changed. Not fearful this time. Protective. "Mr. Henderson," she said firmly, "if the media comes, we'll stand with you, all of us." I looked at her, surprised by the conviction in her voice. She wasn't the same girl who had mocked me days earlier. She was becoming someone stronger, someone kinder, someone I could finally imagine being part of our family. But the truth was that the situation was more complicated than she knew, because what none of them realized was that the article was only the beginning. More had been published, more were coming, and with them, questions I had avoided for years.
As the hours passed, more articles began appearing online. Linda refreshed her phone every few minutes, each time revealing a new headline. Henderson's sudden reappearance sparks industry rumors. Is the tech legend planning a comeback? Anonymous source claims Henderson met with investors. None of it was true, of course. But the internet didn't care about truth. It cared about noise. And suddenly, I was the noise. Mark paced the living room, frustration growing. "Dad, this is ridiculous. You didn't do anything. Why can't they just leave you alone?" Ron sighed. "Because the world hates a mystery, and your father-in-law," he nodded toward me, "is one of the biggest mysteries the tech industry ever had." Emily stood quietly by the window, staring outside. She looked conflicted, but more than that, concerned. "Mr. Henderson, what happens if reporters come here?" she asked softly. "They won't know where to find me," I said. "At least, not yet." "But they might," Mark added. "Those people can dig up anything." I didn't respond, because deep down, he was right. My disappearance years ago had been intentional, strategic. I had no social media, no public records past a certain point, no digital trail. But times changed, technology evolved, and privacy grew thinner every year. A knock suddenly hit the door, sharp and unexpected. Everyone stiffened. Emily whispered, "Did someone follow us here?" Mark walked to the door cautiously and opened it just a few inches. A tall man in a black jacket stood outside. Not a reporter, not a photographer, but someone far more serious-looking. "Can I help you?" Mark asked, blocking the entrance. The man held up a badge. "Mr. William Henderson, we need to have a conversation." Linda gasped. Ron muttered, "What on earth?" Emily stepped backward, fear flickering across her face, but I remained calm. I walked toward the door, stopping a few feet away. "What is this regarding?" The man's eyes met mine, steady and professional. "We represent the Federal Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Division. There's been a breach involving a legacy system tied to one of your former patents.
We believe you may have information that could help us patch the vulnerability. Emily's hand flew to her chest. A breach? Mark blinked. Dad, what is he talking about? The agent continued. We've tried contacting the representatives who purchased your company, but the data leads back to a system that was never fully transferred. According to our records, the original architecture remains registered in your name. Ron slowly exhaled. This is serious. The agent nodded. Extremely. And given your past work with encrypted networks, we believe you may be the only person who can help us patch the vulnerability before it spreads. The room fell silent. Very silent. Emily stared at me with wide eyes. Mr. Henderson, you used to work with encryption? I did more than that, I said quietly. I built one of the first adaptive AI-based security frameworks ever used by civilian sectors. Mark's jaw dropped. Why didn't I know this? You knew I worked in tech. You didn't need every detail of my resume. The agent cleared his throat. Mr. Henderson, may we come inside to discuss the matter? But before I answered, Emily stepped in front of me. Wait, she said firmly. If he helps you, will this become public? Will his name be exposed again? The agent hesitated. This is a federal matter. We can't promise zero publicity. Emily's voice sharpened. Then he shouldn't agree. He left that world for a reason. He looked at her, surprised at her protectiveness. I gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Emily. No, she said, shaking her head. You finally have peace. You finally have a quiet life. You shouldn't have to give that up because someone else messed up a system you don't even own anymore. Mark stepped beside her. She's right, Dad. Linda and Ron exchanged uneasy glances. The agent remained expressionless. Mr. Henderson, this isn't about business. This is a national concern. Which is why I'll help, I said. Everyone turned toward me at once. Emily's voice trembled. But you just said... Emily, I said gently, there's a difference between attention and responsibility. I faced the agent. You said there's a vulnerability. What kind? An adaptive breach algorithm that appears to be learning from each firewall it encounters. I exhaled slowly. I knew exactly what that meant. It's using the old Henderson NetCore framework, isn't it? His eyes widened. Yes. How did you... Because I built it, and I always knew that if someone found a way to weaponize its adaptive features, it could be catastrophic. Emily's face drained of color. You mean people could get hurt? Potentially. Not physically, but financially, medically, socially. A breach like this can collapse hospitals, banks, airports, and no one would see it coming. The agent stepped forward. Then you understand why we came. I nodded. I'll cooperate, but on my terms. Which are? No public announcements, no press, no exposure, and I work remotely from here with full autonomy. The agent considered it, then finally agreed. We can arrange that. Emily looked relieved, but still shaken. As the agent stepped inside and began explaining the details, Emily walked to Linda and whispered, I had no idea who he really was. Linda squeezed her hand. Now you do, and now you understand why respect matters. But Emily wasn't looking at the agent anymore. She was looking at me, not as a billionaire, not as a mystery, but as someone carrying responsibilities far bigger than she'd ever imagined. And for the first time, she understood the true weight of the name she once mocked.
The agent set up his laptop on the dining table, opening encrypted files and running diagnostics. Lines of code flickered across the screen like a swarm of angry insects. Mark, Emily, Linda, and Ron stood nearby, watching anxiously. I pulled up a chair beside the agent. Show me the entry point, I said. He clicked a few keys, a diagram appeared, Network branches, data streams, and a red blinking node pulsing like a heartbeat. Emily swallowed. What is that? That, I said, is where the breach started. The agent added, it's spreading faster than anything we've seen. Every time we block it, it evolves. I leaned closer. Because the original framework was built to adapt, to learn from attacks, it's doing exactly what it was designed to do, except now it's being used against the system. Mark shook his head. Dad, how does something you built decades ago still exist? Because good systems never truly disappear. They get buried, reused, repurposed, and sometimes forgotten, until someone digs them up. I typed rapidly, opening command sequences I thought I'd never see again. The agent watched with quiet admiration. It's incredible, he murmured. You haven't touched this code in years, yet you still remember its structure. I smiled faintly. You don't forget your first masterpiece. Emily approached slowly. Is it dangerous? Not in the way you think, I said. It can't harm people physically, but it can shut down everything they rely on. Hospitals, banks, emergency networks. It's like cutting the power to an entire country, digitally. Emily's face tightened with fear. So people could lose their savings? Yes. Medical records? Yes. Flights? Communications? All of it, I said, if the breach reaches the core. The room went silent. Linda crossed her arms, her voice trembling slightly. Is this something you can actually fix? I didn't answer right away, because the truth was, fixing it wouldn't be simple. I can slow it, maybe redirect it, but stopping it completely. The agent looked at me sharply. You're the only one who can. Maybe, but I'll need time. Emily stepped forward, determination pushing through her fear. Then you'll have it, she said. I looked at her, surprised by her certainty. She wasn't the nervous, status-obsessed girl from a few days ago. She was grounding herself, growing. Emily, I said softly, you don't have to worry about this. It isn't your burden. You're wrong, she said. You're part of our family, and family protects each other. Mark wrapped an arm around her shoulder, proud. The agent cleared his throat. Mr. Henderson, there's another issue. I glanced at him. Go on. The breach appears to originate from offshore servers. We believe it might be a coordinated attempt, not just random hackers. I froze, because the moment he said that, something clicked. A memory, a name, a warning I'd ignored years ago because I thought I was done with that world. Who's behind it? Mark asked. The agent hesitated. We can't say for certain, but there's a group that's been resurfacing lately. They target old systems, discontinued patents, abandoned frameworks, anything left unprotected. My voice lowered. The cipher ring. The agent's eyes widened. So you've heard of them? I've more than heard of them. They tried to recruit me once. Emily gasped. Why you? Because back then they wanted access to this system, I explained. I refused. I told them the framework was too powerful to fall into the wrong hands. The agent nodded. And now they're trying to take it anyway. Emily backed up a step, shock tightening her chest. So, they're using your own invention against the country? Yes, I said quietly. Ron exhaled sharply. This just went from serious to terrifying. Linda whispered, why would criminals want something like this? The agent answered, control, chaos, vulnerability. Imagine a world where banks freeze, airports shut down, emergency services collapse, while they demand payment to stop it. Emily covered her mouth. Like holding an entire nation hostage? Exactly. And if they succeed, no one is safe. Mark looked at me with fear and admiration mixed together. Dad, can you beat them? I didn't look away from the screen as I replied, I can try. Emily's voice trembled, But if you fight them, won't they come after you? I paused, because the truth was, yes, and Emily saw the answer in my silence before I said a word. She whispered, "Oh, God." The agent looked steadily at me. "Mr. Henderson, you should know they've been searching for you for a long time." I felt the room tilt slightly. Emily grabbed Mark's hand. Linda's face paled. Ron stood frozen. The agent continued, "And now that your location has been leaked online, they might already be coming." Emily's breath caught in her throat. Mark clenched his jaw. Linda whispered a prayer. And the house, once filled with warmth and conversation, suddenly felt like a target.
The moment the agent said those words, "They might already be coming," the entire house shifted. The air felt heavier, colder, as if danger had quietly stepped onto the porch and was waiting to be invited in. Emily instinctively moved closer to Mark. Linda placed a shaking hand on her husband's arm. Ron scanned the windows like someone expecting shadows to move. I remained still, steady. But inside my mind, gears began turning at full speed. I hadn't thought about the cipher ring in years. I had hoped they'd disbanded, disappeared, devoured each other like most criminal tech groups do. But clearly, I had underestimated them. The agent snapped his laptop shut. "We need to secure this location, right now." "Already done," I said calmly. He frowned. "What do you mean?" "This house is equipped with a passive monitoring grid," I replied. "No cameras, no microphones, just a motion-triggered perimeter scanner built into the soil around the property." Mark blinked. "Wait, you have a security grid? Since when?" "Since I bought the house," I said. "I live quietly, not carelessly." Emily whispered, "Did you expect something like this might happen someday?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My silence told her everything. The agent stood. "Show me the monitoring output." I walked to the old wooden cabinet next to the fireplace and opened a hidden panel. A small screen lit up with a thermal map of the surrounding forest. Most areas glowed blue, cold, undisturbed. The agent leaned in. "Good coverage. Any triggers?" "Not yet," I said. "But the system is old. It'll give us early warning, not real-time protection." Emily bit her lip. "What happens if they find us before you can fix the breach?" I glanced at her. "They won't hurt you." "But they might hurt you," she replied, her voice cracking. I paused. Slowly, she stepped closer. "I know I wasn't kind to you at first. I judged you, misunderstood you. But now," her voice trembled, "now I'm scared for you." I placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You don't need to be." "I do," she whispered. "Because I finally understand what you gave up to protect your peace, and I won't let anyone take that from you." The room went quiet. Even the agent softened for a moment. But then the thermal monitor beeped. A single sound, sharp and chilling. Ron stiffened. Linda's breath hitched. Mark rushed to the screen. "What does that mean?" he demanded. The agent's voice dropped. "It means someone entered the perimeter." Emily froze. "Is it them?" The screen showed a faint orange blur moving between trees. Slow, intentional. Not wildlife, not random. I focused on the heat signature. "One person," I said softly. "Possibly a scout." "A scout?" Emily repeated, fear creeping in. The agent nodded grimly. "If it's the cipher ring, they never come alone." Ron swallowed hard. "So more could be on the way?" "Yes," the agent confirmed. "Much more." Emily grabbed my arm, panic rising. "What do we do?" "We stay inside, and we stay calm." But the agent stepped toward me urgently. "Mr. Henderson, we need to move you somewhere safer, a secure location. The sooner the better." "No," I said. "I won't be hunted again. I ran once, I'm not running a second time. The agent stared at me. If they capture you, they won't, I interrupted, because I know every flaw in their system. I know their methods. I built technology they studied. If they come here, they'll expect fear, chaos, weakness. I turned to the laptop and reopened the breach files. But instead, I'll give them something they never expect. Emily whispered, "What?" I typed rapidly, opening an interface most people on Earth didn't know existed. A ghost system, a backdoor only I could activate. "A trap," I said. The agent's eyes widened. "You're going to bait them?" "No," I replied calmly. "I'm going to let them think they already won." Mark stared, confused. "Dad, what does that even mean?" "It means," I said, "that while they're attacking the system they think is still vulnerable, I'll be behind it, rewriting the entire architecture from scratch." The agent blinked. "You mean destroying the original framework?" "Yes." "But that's your life's work," Ron exclaimed. "It was," I said. "But if criminals can corrupt it, then it shouldn't exist anymore." Emily looked at me with something new in her eyes, respect, admiration, and a growing realization of the kind of man I really was. "You're willing to erase everything you built just to protect people you don't even know?" "That," I said softly, "is what responsibility looks like." The screen beeped again. Another heat signature, and then another, then a fourth. Linda whispered, "They're surrounding us." The agent's voice hardened. "Mr. Henderson, we have minutes, maybe less." Emily grabbed my arm. "Please, tell us what to do." I looked at all of them, my son, his fiancée, their parents, the agent, and I knew what had to happen next. "Everyone stays behind me, and no matter what happens, you do not speak to them. You let me handle this." Emily's voice shook. "Why? What are you going to do?" I exhaled slowly, my voice calm, certain. "I'm going to talk to them."
When Hannah's mother stepped out of the restaurant, I watched her carefully. She wasn't calm. She was trembling in disbelief. Her eyes kept flicking between the screen of her phone and my face, as if trying to confirm that the man standing in front of her was truly the name she had just Googled. I gave her a gentle nod, not of pride, but of reassurance. She approached me again, this time slower, almost respectfully. "Sir, I had no idea. You are him." I smiled softly. "I'm just Mason Carter. Nothing more, nothing less." But she wasn't convinced. "No, sir, your story is everywhere. People study you in business schools." "Maybe, but that doesn't make me better than anyone else," I answered. Hannah stood frozen. Her arrogance melted so fast it was almost painful to watch. The girl who once said, "He's nobody," now looked like she couldn't meet my eyes. Her confidence was gone. Her voice trembled. I didn't know." I looked directly at her. "And that's the issue. You didn't care to know. Respect shouldn't come from Google, Hannah. It should come from basic humanity." She swallowed hard. Her fiancé, my son, stood beside her, equally shaken. For the first time, he finally understood the humiliation I quietly endured in silence. The air in the restaurant shifted. People whispered. Some recognized me. Some recorded discreetly. But I kept my composure. I didn't want drama. I wanted understanding. Hannah's mother suddenly bowed her head. "Mr. Carter, my daughter was terribly wrong. Please forgive her, and forgive me too for joining her earlier." I placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "No hard feelings. I came here today not as Mason Carter, the businessman, but as a father." Hannah wiped tears from her eyes. I had never seen her cry before. Her voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I treated you terribly. I judged you because you dressed simple, lived humble, and never mentioned who you really are. I thought you had no status." I spoke softly, but firmly. "And even if I had no status, Would that make me unworthy of respect? She shook her head instantly. No, you're right. I was wrong. Horribly wrong. My son stepped closer to her. Hannah, he's my father. I told you he's the best man I've ever known. Now you see why. But then Hannah said something unexpected, something that silenced the whole table. Sir, please let me earn your respect back. I want to be worthy of being part of this family. I want to learn from you. I want to do better. I stared at her. Tears streamed down her cheeks. This wasn't fakery. This was real shame, real growth. Her mother whispered, Please give her a chance, sir. I finally exhaled. I don't need you to respect me for my name, Hannah. I need you to respect my son, our family, and yourself. She nodded fiercely. I will. From today, I promise. The restaurant manager approached shyly. Mr. Carter, your car is ready. Should we bring it to the front? Hannah's eyes went wide when she saw the black SUV pull up with 2 security officers. I looked back at her and said, gently, my life looked simple because I chose to live simple. Power doesn't need to be loud. She nodded again, absorbing every word. And as we walked out, she quietly walked beside me, no longer entitled, no longer arrogant, just humbled. And just when I thought the moment was over, Hannah softly said, Mr. Carter, can we start over? Not as someone important and someone who made a mistake, but as family. I paused, looked into her eyes, and slowly I extended my hand. Yes, let's start over. She broke down crying in relief. My son hugged me tightly, and as we walked toward the car together, I realized something. Sometimes you don't need to fight disrespect with anger. Sometimes truth itself fights for you. And in that moment, I didn't feel like a nobody. I felt exactly who I wanted to be. A father who taught a lesson without raising his voice. A man who stayed true to himself. A name that didn't need to be spoken to be known. And that was enough.